Hey everyone, this is Ole Sharanki from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS podcast. All right. Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to another in-person interview here with Laddering Your Success. It's been a while since we've been able to do one of these. We've been really busy, but we're thankful that we made it to September, and we have a wonderful guest with us this Sunday. Festus, how you been? What any updates you got from Laddering Your Success?
Life updates.
Life updates,
I
LYS updates.
I need sleep. I mean, I'm very happy, elated that we're still pushing strong, still making impact in schools and communities and homes, and so that's the main update. I guess MATA, we're going into MATA soon, so that's a pretty big update. LYS Africa, we started doing that. We're gonna drop some tidbits on that later. So I mean, we're doing some things.
Absolutely.
Podcast. Oh, not podcast. The second app is going to be in the works.
Getting ready, finishing up 3 years.
Too much.
Well, with all that being said, let me transition to the introduction for our guest this afternoon. Gregory Gray is the founder and CEO of Graceful Moves, a Houston-based company specializing in moving and relocation services that emphasizes compassion, professionalism, and excellence. With a mission to serve clients by reducing the stress of moving while ensuring quality experiences, Graceful Moves has become known for its integrity and customer first approach. Mm-hmm. Gregory's leadership reflects a commitment not only to business growth, but also to entrepreneurship, resilience, and community serving leadership. It's our honor to welcome our guest this afternoon, Mr. Gregory Gray.
You didn't know you lived all that.
Yeah, I did not.
Yeah.
You did, yeah. You explained that better than I would have. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So tell us how to make $1 million in business. No, I'm joking. Is it as good as people say that it is, or no?
Making $1 million in business?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good for sure.
Okay.
It's an accomplishment.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you don't get to see everything. You know what I mean? But yeah, you cross $1 million. You should be proud.
Yeah, most def. Mm-hmm. So, man, I have the great pleasure and honor of hosting you today. We done came up together, young dudes scrapping and scraggling in the faith, in the streets, and in life. And so, for me, it's been an honor and pleasure to just see your growth, you know what I mean, and see the moves that you made. I remember when you first told me, man, I'm starting a moving company. Greg.
Remember what you said?
Oh yeah, I'm about to say it right now. I said you don't have a truck. So what are you doing? So he's like, I'm like, bro, your car right now ain't even really just working like that. But you was able to. The truth of getting it out the mud. And so to me, that's the thing I just love to see is like even me. I'm one of your biggest fans. But even when I was down, you was like, yo, bro, I got something to do. Mm-hmm. And I just love to see that. That's like the grimy of the grimy. You know what I'm saying? So take us back, man. For people who don't know you, never met you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We really want to be able to kind of go into the background of how a person becomes successful and you know, a lot of people don't. There's a Texas people that know you, and then there's a Cali people that know you. So take us back to Cali. What was that like?
Back to Cali. That's funny.
We're going.
Right, back to Cali. Yeah. Was that intentional? I'm just kidding. That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. Okay. Yeah. So California roots. Stop me where you need to stop me. You know what I mean? But yeah, California roots. So I was born to a teenage mom. You know what I mean? And a young father. I think my dad was maybe about 21 when they had me. My mom had to be like 19. I was born in Long Beach Pacific Hospital, it's a county hospital in Long Beach, California. And up until my high school years, I was between Long Beach and Compton, California. And my pops was from Compton. My mom was from Long Beach. Oh, wow. Yeah. And actually my mom was from Compton as well, but we lived in Long Beach. And at that time, moving to Long Beach was to us getting out the hood, even though Long Beach is also the hood, you know what I mean? But yeah, upbringing was tough, right? We had my pops was a part of probably one of the most notorious Crip gangs in Compton, and lead names and stuff out, right? But yeah, and my mom grew up on a blood side of Compton. Back then, that was a thing, right? For dudes that was cripping, right? To get with a blood female. Yeah, it was, you get bragging rights for stuff like that, yeah. And but anyway, yeah, that was them. They didn't stay together too long, right? So for the most part, I was raised by my mom, a single mom. And as a matter of fact, I think my pops went to jail when I was 2. And so I was just me and my mom until my step pops came into our life. That was also at a young age. Maybe I was 5 or 6 years old. But him and my mom was on and off until my high school years, and until they just completely called it quits. So whenever it was just my mom, my pops now, my step pops, I want to stop there. My step pops was super instrumental in my life. I'll get into this part later, but I became a believer. Every part of me becoming a believer and seeking Christ, that all came from my step pops. That was a man that every single night I seen this man on his knees and praying. And when I say every night, I'm a firm believer that consistency is not always every day, all the time. Sometimes there's a couple steps back. That's not this man. He had an 8th grade education, you know what I'm saying? And we can do a whole podcast on that dude. I'm not kidding. 8th grade education from Louisiana, went to California and did his thing. And he came into our life and introduced us to the faith. Seen this dude praying all the time. I remember asking him, what is he praying? It was the Lord's Prayer. So he taught me how to do the Lord's Prayer. I remember asking him, what is repentance? He taught me or told me what repentance was, all that. I didn't become a believer at that time, I don't think, but he definitely planted some seeds, right? But anyway, when we weren't with him, because again, him and my mom was on and off. We was with my mom, single mom. Oftentimes we'd come home from school, lights not on. You know what I mean? I went through every type of abuse you can probably think of. You know what I mean? When I say every type, I mean every type. You know what I mean? I leave it up to y'all imagination. And that just kind of came with, inner city hood stuff sometimes. Mom's at work. She got to leave us at home with different people, sometimes with nobody, right? Just me and my older sister. Shout out to my big sister. That was oftentimes like another mom to me. Fortunately for me, unfortunately for her, because she had to grow up really fast. We're only 2 years apart. And so, yeah, growing up in, Long Beach, Compton, it was a struggle. You know what I mean? We not only was the lights not be on, it got so bad that when the lights wasn't on, we knew the routine. We knew what to do. You know what I'm saying? We get home, lights not on, go get the candles. We know what time it is. And we get to be outside for some time, right? That's going to be our excuse. There's no food in the refrigerator. We go in there. It's like, okay, cool. We got some bread. We got some butter. We got some sugar. You know what I'm saying? You go to the neighbors, heat that up. We're going to make it happen. My sister, you know what I'm saying? If she has some potatoes, my sister's going to cut up some potatoes. We're going to go to the neighbor house, ask if we can fry them. We got French fries, right? So that was life. But I don't want to make it sound like it was all bad, because by God's grace, it never really, the hard times, it penetrated to some degree, right? I was diagnosed with ADHD, PTSD, and OCD, right? So I had my traumas for sure, but for some reason, I never lost hope in like all that I can be. When I would watch the Disney Channel all the time growing up, but when I would watch it, I would kind of like, I would see myself in what was happening, like, man, I'm gonna be this, I'm gonna do that. I never really lost hope for real. You know what I mean? I always believe I can do more. And I also always had like more of a charismatic attitude and personality. I didn't get consumed by the struggles. I seen it, I was around it, you know what I mean? But like I was a kid, like we were walking in a bayou in Long Beach, and I remember walking one day, it was in a hood where a lot of Mexicans was. And I remember finding a gun in the bayou. I'm like, oh, a gun. Picked it up, you know what I mean? Like, man, you know what I mean? Ran home, showed my neighbor who was one of the hood dudes over there. He's like, hey, Way, what you doing, fool? Put that down, fool. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like,
Murder, threw it out in a murder.
Yeah,
Like,
straight up.
A toy.
Seriously. But I was disconnected, you know what I mean? I was just in the hood, and just, that was life for me, man. And kind of bring this to a close. I stayed in Long Beach, Compton, and up until my high school years. And like I said, my pops was from a Crip gang. And it was just between the pressures and I think me longing to be with my pops and like my pops, I ended up getting put on that Crip gang. You know what I'm saying? And after that, it was juvenile hall. I'm gonna say before that, actually, it was juvenile hall. Then after that, it was county multiple times. And it wasn't until my oldest boy, so I ended up getting a girl pregnant. I went to Job Corps shortly after high school. Let me not jump too much. I didn't finish high school, right? But I'm sure we're gonna get into that. But yeah, I ended up going to Job Corps. And a girl I met there, I got her pregnant, and I got her pregnant with my son. And at that time, I just, I knew that I was gonna be a good father, right? And I wasn't going, I was gonna be there for my son, And that's what began to change me, right? I started having crazy dreams about being taken up out of here before I can really raise my son. I faced a pretty serious case, a drug case that could have had me out of here, but because of they had just started this, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like a sweep that they was doing in California for all gang members, right? So the jails was getting super populated at the time. And so they let me out on a pretty serious charge on an OR, right? Because they were just overpopulated. So they just let me out. It was all God, bro. Like I just seen it as like God looking out. So my son coming, God just constantly blessing me, and my mom moving to Texas and her inviting me, it was all opportunity and, signs like, bro, it's time for you to get up out of here.
So take us back, because you said something really powerful about not graduating high school, but also having like hopes and aspirations.
Sure.
Were there, tell us about your education journey. Were there teachers who were speaking into your life, or was it like a thing where it's like, because some kids, this is the reality. The reality is, I got food and lights at school.
Come on.
And then at home, you know what I'm saying, it's struggle. But
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So what was that like? Was it like, hey man, I got, Miss Smith or somebody else
absolutely
into my life? And then what was that journey like from, kind of elementary, middle school, high school? Was it like, man, I'm a brilliant student, but I just don't got a chance? Or kind of talk about
Sure. All right. So to answer that latter half of your conversation, I was not a brilliant student, right? Far from it. For me, I had ADHD, like I said, right? So it's really difficult for me to focus and pay attention in class, right? If I didn't comprehend something well, I was just about to act out in class. You know what I mean? And by act out for me is just talking a lot and trying to be, class clown, right? Trying to be cool in front of the girls or whatever. So elementary, junior high, I'm gonna be honest, all the way through high school, it was tough for me, but largely because I think every teacher who got close to me knew that I wanted more. I wanted more, you know what I mean? It's just, I legitimately things just didn't come to me that easy as it relates to comprehension. Yeah. And so when it didn't, I would act out, right? Which made it easier for me to go into the streets, right? Because there it was easy to get, pats on the back and, attaboys or whatever you look, whatever. And so for high school, elementary, there was, so to answer your other question about teachers, right? Anyone who's spoken to my life, literally probably every year, you know what I mean? God blessed me in that way. I'm not gonna lie. Every year it was somebody that was like, I could see it in you. I know you want more and you can have more. It was like, I've always been a natural leader, but didn't see it, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, no matter what the teacher said, I would go back home and they would be saying the opposite, right? I was more, so I was in, I'm not gonna say my parents couldn't see it in me, but I think because of their own struggles and their own traumas, they didn't know how to speak life into me, you know what I mean? And so it was really hard for me to believe what anybody else could see, But yeah, so there was a teacher, Miss Harris. Man, Miss Harris, yeah, I remember she told me, she was probably the first person that told me, you're a leader. And what she seen was that everybody followed me. It's just for the wrong reasons, you know what I mean? I was very charismatic, and I think I just kind of had, humbly I say, I think I had kind of a charm about me even when I was younger. And I'm gonna say even when, because I don't think I have it no more, but when I was younger, I had it, you know what I'm saying? And so people just kind of naturally look past certain things, up until it got too bad. But she was the first person that called me a leader. And the dope thing about Miss Harris was, in Compton, you remember, so you probably don't know, but out there it wasn't always just, gang banging and all that. At one time, it was where the black community was, there was community, where everybody held everybody accountable. Everybody whipped everybody's kids and all that type of stuff. And it was some women on my street that all still live. There's 3 women, they all still live there, right? And it was Miss Rogers, Miss Paula, and I can't remember the other lady. But one day I seen Miss Harris just pop up on my street, and I'm like, whew, did I do something that bad? She came to my house, and she was like, Greg, what you doing over here? And I'm like, before I tell you, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, why, what are you doing over here? And she said her homegirl stayed right next door. I'm like, Miss Rogers? She was like, yeah. She's like, and she went to go talk to Miss Rogers, and then I seen Miss Paula come out, and they had a thing. And then I told my dad, I'm like, Miss Harris is outside. He was like, your teacher? I'm like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, you didn't know she was friends with Miss Harris? Miss Rogers? I'm like, you knew this whole time? So I'm like, wait a minute, is this how you know so much? But anyway, yeah, so Miss Harris spoke a lot into my life, and because she was so close to my family, it meant a lot. If I jump to just kind of the things that stood out most, if I jumped to the 6th grade, it was a teacher named Miss LeBlanc who actually, wasn't a good story. So I was just bad with my homework, never turned nothing in, talked a lot in class. Miss Harris did not, Miss LeBlanc, she did not like me, literally. I never knew what a specimen was. I'm sure everybody, y'all know what I never knew what a specimen was until this lady called me a sorry specimen, you know what I mean? In the 6th grade, bro, a sorry specimen. And I'm saying it to y'all, right, I'm saying it to y'all like this. At the time, I'm just like, I just looked at her like, okay, sorry specimen. It's interesting. Until I went home, I'm like, my teacher called me a sorry specimen. You know what I mean? My mom was like, a what? Like a sorry specimen. Unfortunately, again, it wasn't handled right? It was laughed at, and it was like, bro, you bad, like you off to call you a sorry specimen. Like, so, anyway, but, that was her. I wanted to point that out because, you got those teachers that will speak into your life, but depending on where you from, and if they still got a heart for what they doing, you also got those teachers that'll tear you down too, right? And then the last one I'll jump to, this was actually in juvenile hall. It was interesting because I committed a crime, right? And it was I went into juvie, and even in juvie, it's like I should have known, man. But even in juvie, there was a guard, a RA as they called him, a residential advisor. I had to go into the hole. It was a lady there. She waited till everybody left, and she looked at everybody in there, and she was like, everybody be quiet. Nobody would listen to her, right? And we all look different than her. I don't know how explicit I can be on here. We all look different than her. She was a little fragile, whatever. You can tell she had her opinions about us or whatever. She's like, nobody want to listen? That's your problem. That's why you're here. You're a bunch of criminals. You'll never change. I'll see you back. I'll see you in county. All this crazy stuff. And for whatever reason, I'm like, I don't think she's supposed to be saying this stuff to us. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, I'm not no criminal, and she's like, you here, aren't you? And I'm like, I don't care. I'm not a criminal. And I've had a little Disney movie moment, you know what I'm saying? Like thinking everybody gonna join in, like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Nah, that wasn't it. She was like, oh no, you're not going the hole. It wasn't a hole. It was, I can't remember. It was the hole for juvenile people. But I wasn't supposed to be in there for my crime. I'm not supposed to go in there at all, right? So I'm like, nah. And she was like, oh no, do you want to be here longer? Had I known better, I would have known she couldn't do that, right? But I'm like, all right, let me go. And she was like, and strip down. I'm like, oh, for sure we ain't supposed to do that. I'm like, I'm not stripping down. And she was like, strip down. So I'm like, if I am, I'm gonna go in the shower, right? And she's like, no, right there in front of everybody, right? And I'm like, I'm not doing that, right? So anyway, I started to do that. One boy spoke up. She made him get in. He went in. I'm like, I'm not doing it. So she put me in. One guy, the guard I'm telling y'all about, I cannot remember his name, right? Big, light skin, 6'4", massive dude, right? He came in, I think shifts changed. She left. And he went into the room and he was like, or he went into the little hole, whatever I was in. He was like, what's going on? And I told him what happened. And I could tell by his face, he couldn't outright put her down, but I could tell by his face she was wrong, And he was like, man, look it. He was like, Gray, you ain't supposed to be in here, man. Yeah. And he was like, this is not you. He was like, I never want to see you back in here. You a leader, man. You feel me? And it was like, I keep hearing this, And you know what? It was, I guess by God's grace, I never thought like, you supposed to say that. I never was that kid. I'm like, and I think partly because I believed it. Like I thought I was more too. It was like deep down under all this stuff. And he was like, I can see how everybody deal with you, man. Like, he's like, God got something else for you, right? And I think that was also the first time I agreed. I'm like, I know. I start crying. I'm like, I know. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, a Disney mode, right? And anyway, he went out and left. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. There's a couple teachers that, spoke into my life, helped me to believe more. And I hope that answered your question.
So the thing I love that we do is whenever we have these conversations and we talk to people, the idea of a theme, right? Of someone always pouring into you, just giving you a certain word.
Sure.
And I always say teachers are like farmers because they're always planting seeds.
Come on.
They don't see it when it sprouts.
Wow.
They just drop it and they go.
Come on.
And so you had that moment in juvie where you heard it again, but it kind of clicked. Like I keep hearing it. People keep telling me later, like there's something different about it, right? And so you had that moment where it's like, all right, if they see it and I've thought it, there must be something to it. Right?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So what happens from that moment?
Sure.
Right? You get out. eventually you're here now in Houston.
Yeah.
So something had to happen that brought you from Cali to Houston. You know, you mentioned your mom. So tell us what happens a little bit after that.
Yeah, I wish it was that simple to where, you know, he told me that and it was like, yeah. But like I said, that was juvie, right? I also went to county, so I didn't just snap out of it, you know what I mean? But, you know, but I love that. If that's your thing, brother, I love that, you know what I mean? And fortunately, teachers, that's super important to be teachers, because I mean, oftentimes they catching us earlier, right? And they got us for so long throughout the day. It's so powerful. Because even if you don't have someone speaking into your life at home, man, to have it at school, and if it's often, like I said, those people I just told you about, I will not forget them. Come on now, I'm 36 years old. I will not forget them. And I don't know if that was their, you know, it was like, man, I never want you to forget me. I don't think that was their thing. That's why I hope that there's teachers. I wish that there was more teachers that to where it was still in them. You know what I mean? It was still, they understood that they play such a significant role. You know what I mean? Such a significant role. But anyway, yeah. So, like I said, it didn't clean up that much, right? But to be honest with you, it was more people I seen that theme with. It was I went to Job Corps, and Mr. Love at Job Corps, same thing. He oftentimes told me the same thing. After I got I told you I got out of county, it was populated because the sweep they was doing. I still had to go back to court for them to officially throw it out. And there I seen another RA, what we also call RAs for the people who watched over us at Job Corps. So this was an RA at Job Corps. She was in there. Her boyfriend, you know what I'm saying, was also fighting the case. And so when they threw my case out though, she was like, so my nickname is BG, right? It's Baby Greg though, not Baby Gangster, right? So I'm a junior. Anyway, she's like BG. So she see them throw it out. She's like, BG, I'm proud of you. Now go do your ish. You know what I mean? So even she seen like, you know, so what it was for me that brought me here though, it was ultimately ultimately it was my son, my oldest boy. I knew that if I stayed in California, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. I believe that at least, and it was good that I did, you know. As a matter of fact, my best friend, or my closest friend, who I ran with, got killed shortly after I left. And it was no doubt in my mind that it was probably about an 80 to 90% chance I would have been with him, just considering what he was doing, the stuff he was doing when it happened. I was his guy, you know what I mean? And so yeah, my son brought me here, and unfortunately, I still didn't fully learn my lesson. I moved here, and I was still doing stuff here, right? You know, it's kind of go like what they say, you can take the person out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the person. So yeah, but by God's grace, my mom moved here. She came here in 2008 after the recession, and she was in real estate. So she thought it was a better opportunity here for that. And it was good because we needed her, my sister, we all needed to separate, you know. I didn't see it at the time, but it was good. And I got here and I got a job. When I came here, I came with my son and his mom. So all three of us came together. And I got a job at Dr. Pepper. It was a temporary tip job. And I was still, like I said, I didn't learn my lesson, so I was still doing stuff on the side and street stuff. And I think at this time, things was going good. And you ultimately just asked what brought me here, okay? But yeah, things were going good. And I got his mom pregnant again. And she left, we separated, she left. When she left, I ended up getting a job at Memorial Hermann, switching jobs. I got a job at Memorial Hermann. And I was seeing enough examples around me, a mutual friend of ours, Fred. I was seeing enough examples between Fred and a couple other people I knew that I seen some men. And I'm like, you know what, maybe I can clean up a little bit. Like, and I wasn't still, I wasn't fully clean, and I'm like, they was married, they made marriage look good. I'm like, I think I want to maybe the marriage. So let me get my life together. Let me get some stuff together, get her back out here and, show her a different life too. It's my first time seeing like, Texas is a different culture in California. Like, people at work wanted to work doubles and they wanted to do 12 hours. They asking for more hours. I'm like, really? Like for us, it's like in California, at least in the hood, it's like, nah, we rather just go get it out the streets, right? But it was, and I'm sure I know they got that here. Let me not, I know they got that here. But the people I was around was like, nah, let me work for it. And I'm like, okay, I can work for it. So I was doing doubles and whatever, right? And so she ended up coming back, right? After having my youngest boy in California, they came back and we tried the home thing, right? The family thing for a little while. And it was nice when it was nice, but we still just had the streets in us, you know what I mean? And so it was a lot of domestic BS, a lot of, just nonsense, and she eventually that we went left, okay? She left, and I end up meeting, Fred introduced me to the church that we met at, and I don't know if I'm going too far. Okay, and meeting Festus, became super instrumental in my walk with the Lord. And I think at that point, I think that's when I became a solid believer, when we went to the church that we met at. And yeah, like slowly but surely, my life just started changing and evolving. I still had my issues, but yeah.
For sure. So now I want to ask, because you're starting to see like things kind of come full circle.
Sure.
You're almost there.
Mm-hmm.
You're out the streets, not doing no more hood stuff.
For sure, yeah.
Usually there's something that happens.
Mm.
Right? You're around, and I know that feeling when you're around like men of God. Right?
Yeah.
Or you're around, I guess we can call it like men, I don't want to say manly men, but just
Yeah.
good men, solid men.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, man,
Mm-hmm.
I like this guy. This guy's solid.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think of it as people who don't waver. Like we're all gonna go do this. We're like, all right, cool, let's go do
Yeah.
the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm setting my weights. What was there a thing, or was there a moment? Was there a situation that happened? Was there a call from God that led you to believe, like, all right, this is this turn I'm gonna make.
Mm.
Now I'm talking about like you starting your own business and things like that.
The business?
Yeah, the business.
Okay.
The business, or if there was something else.
Yeah.
That you before the business, yeah.
So I'm sorry. Can you clarify? So we're talking. You talked about godly men and coming to my.
So I was talking about, you met those people, right? You
Sure.
met Fred. You met Festus.
Yeah.
Was there a moment? Was there a situation? Was there something that happened that said, "Man, let me start my own"?
Yeah. Okay. Appreciate that. Yeah, I can kind of connect the two. So I think between Festus, Fred, and our pastor at the time. Yeah, I think it was exactly what you said. Like it was an exposure of a man and men growing in the faith, having that unwavering, having a mutual, rowing in a mutual direction. You know what I mean? And that was to pursue the things of Christ, right? Like and that naturally was like, okay, well, let's, we want to be better, glorify Christ in every aspect of life, right? So how we work, right? How we lead, that was a big part, right? How we serve, that was a major part. All these different things, and I'm gonna kind of jump, past a key point, but in that process of meeting them, that my kid's mom, we end up splitting, right? She ended up leaving, taking my boys, and my boys went back to the context I left from, and I knew I didn't want them to grow up like that. And my pastor at the time convinced me. He said something that I would never forget. I would always go to him and say, man, my boys are going through this. He finally stopped me after the third, fourth time. He was like, you talk about this a lot. When are you going to do something about it? You're right. He's like, a lot of men talk about the stuff their kids are going through. They don't do a whole lot about it though. You know what I mean? And later, yeah, anyway, so he said this, and it penetrated. It's like, yeah, I got to stop talking. You know what I mean? Disney moment, you know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, I got to stop talking about it. And so first it started off with me asking her, like, can I just get him, right? Then it was me begging her. Then it was me arguing with her. And then, God moved, and it was like, you know what? Let me speak to her from a different direction. So long story short, we understood, we had a mutual agreement, and because of, I think, how we started that, me and her are still tight to this day, right? So like Jody, I get along with my baby mama. You know what I'm saying? We tight. So jumping past, so I end up, meeting my wife. So my current wife, we met in the church, right? So she was already in the church Festus go to, big ups to my wife. Again, we jumping past a big part of my life, you know what I mean? But I met my wife, and she had a daughter. I ended up getting custody of those my two boys. So, and just in case we don't go over this part, we end up having 3 more kids, right? So we have 6 kids total. And so transitioning into the business. So me and my wife get married, right? We have 3 kids in a 1-bedroom apartment, okay? Her old apartment. And yeah, we went through a lot from a lot of people around us, right? So our living situation was, the kids, we all slept in one room. We had my bed, our bed, we had our daughter's bed, and then our boys' blow-up bed at the foot. And by the way, we were very illegal at the time, right? We weren't supposed to be, but we was gonna make it happen, right? And when we wanted privacy, that looked like us taking the mattress into the living room, you know what I mean, for privacy, right? Which it wasn't much privacy during this time. Yeah.
You're just letting it all out.
Yeah. Nah, but the thing about it is, I know, especially I know that there's other people living that. and it's okay, right? Because just like I said about my childhood, we never lost hope. As a matter of fact, it gave me more drive, if anything else. But yeah, so I started working at a Tennis Express, a tennis store, while I was, right. Yeah, so I ended up working at Tennis Express, and it was right down the street from where we lived, and I met my boy Patrick McCarver. He told me about a moving company he worked for, and he said they do labor only. And he talked to me about it, and just seemed like it was a very low barrier to entry, right? Very easy to get into. And yeah,
talk that business talk,
right. And so I'm like, okay, I can do that. And he would tell me, what they did when they go out, how they deal with the customers. So hearing that, I also felt like I can probably do it better than what I'm hearing too, right? And so I told my wife, I told Festus, told everybody, like, I think I'm gonna do this. I was very afraid, and the thing about it, I felt like I needed to do it because I was looking at our situation. I'm like, man, by the way, I went to Job Corps, I got my GED, right? I tried the college thing multiple times. All right, I went to Bible college. I did HCC for a little while. I did pharmacy technician for a little while. I guess school wasn't my thing. You know what I mean? And I guess not formally. Funny enough, I actually love education now. You know what I mean? Or knowledge more so, right? I love knowledge, like reading stuff. But anyway, so I knew that I wasn't going to go to school, and we don't really have I felt like I didn't have the time to do that either, right? With my current situation. And so I started a moving company. And first job, I seen like, okay, customer service is everything. If I just dominate customer service, you know what I mean, then I'll be good. I started hearing about more moving companies and how poor their customer service was, all the horror stories. I'm like, man, y'all making this easy. Because most people who get into this industry, unfortunately, not unfortunately, it attracts people like me, you know what I mean? But people like me who don't typically, who's not ready for change and not ready to grow, right? And they're not ready to transition when they need to transition or develop when they need to develop, right? I was willing to do all of that, right? I think I counted the cost early, right? I knew that I would do anything I can to make this work. Plus those 3 kids and my wife at the house and that apartment, right, was like fire under my butt. Like, I gotta make this work. And so anyway, I don't want to go too far. So I got one lady, I talked about how teachers speak into your life. It's one lady named Miss Lee. I told her, so my mom grew up around Freeway Rick, the real Freeway Rick Ross, right? The real one. He came to Houston after he got out of prison and went to her store. She used to have a local store here. And anyway, he signed a book for me and gave it to me. And he said something in the book like, you can do anything. Da, da. And I'm like, man, this dude is doing that. He got out of jail. He making it happen. I'm like, man, I'm gonna do it. And at this time, I was like on the fence about the moving company. I'm like, nah, I'm gonna do it. And I remember walking outside our store. Miss Lee worked at our store. I walked outside our store. She was the proud Black 65-year-old woman who she would do her job there. But when it came to her dealing with young Black people at that store, she went extra hard, right? And she didn't like for us not to take advantage of opportunity, not to see our opportunity and all these different things. I was walking out the store one day. We was closing up. I'm like, Miss Lee, I think I'm gonna start. And she was like, think. Why you think? She's like, why don't you start? And with Christian lingo, I'm like, well, I don't know if it's God's will. I got to figure out if it's God's will. She was like, boy, you don't know if it's God's will for you to flip them burgers down the street. You don't know if it's God's will for this or God's will for that. She's like, you know what? You know why you won't start? Because you scared. Brother, I'm not playing with you. My wife was in the parking lot. I walked out to the parking lot. I looked at her. She's like, what's wrong? I couldn't open my mouth. She's like, what's wrong? And I couldn't talk. And I just started bawling, crying. Because Miss Lee, she unveiled something that has been like tucked away for a long time. I didn't realize it, but she showed me like, bro, you scared. And the reason why I was scared, because it wasn't so much, I don't think it was scared of success or anything. It was more so that for me, it was afraid of failure, right? I didn't have a reason, based on a lot of things that I was struggling with and all the voices in my head, I didn't have a reason to think that I could succeed. You know what I mean? So when she said that, I'm like, yeah. And it hurt me because at that time I was about 26. And it's like, wow, all this time was robbed from me, bro. I was so angry. So much time was robbed from me because the fear and the traumas and all this different stuff. So I'm like, I've been scared this whole time. But later that night I prayed and I was like, man, praise God that she did that. You know what I mean? She unlocked something, and by God's grace, it's going to unlock so much more for so many other people because she did that. So people never really shouldn't ever stop speaking into your life. You know what I mean? It can be at any age, man. First time my pastor, we was on a mission trip. We're going to go, seek some churches that we can possibly plan at, I think. And he told me, I'm proud of you. I cried again. I'm like, you proud of me? Straight up. But from the hood, you feel me? I'm like, I never heard that before. I never knew what that felt like. I'm like, you proud of me? Somebody's proud of me? And he was like, you good? He hugged me because I'm like, nobody ever told me that before. You know what I'm saying? He hugged me. I'm like, man. So anyway, through all this stuff with Miss Lee, me seeing the need for my family, started Graceful Moves, started off with no truck. We did labor-only services. My goal was just to kill it in customer service. It's phenomenal customer service at all costs. As a matter of fact, our main core value is hit at all costs. Honesty, integrity, transparency at all costs, no matter what it costs you. And that means a lot in the industry, because in the moving industry, because we're always around people's, their prized possessions, their biggest investment, their home, all that. It's a lot to lie about, and that you can lie about, you know what I'm saying? Damages or whatever the case may be. But I decided to, at all costs, you know what I mean? I'm gonna keep it honest. I'm gonna be real, be transparent, and I'm gonna give it my all. Oftentimes I've given plenty free moves because either we dropped the ball on something, or I seen a woman in a similar situation as we maybe grew up in, so we give free moves. So yeah, that was my primary goal, and that honestly helped us explode. I tell people all the time, I don't have a lot of I got a lot of tips and tricks now, you know what I mean, if we want to talk business, but at that time, I just knew hard work and phenomenal customer service. Yeah.
Real quick, 15, 20 seconds.
Okay.
You mentioned being scared. You mentioned fear of failure. Looking back, what does courage mean to you?
Oh, I love that. What does courage mean to me? Courage means walking toward your believed purpose, right? In spite of fear, anxiety, depression. What I mean by that is that those things may be, and if it's real courage, then it will be present. Those things will be present. I think oftentimes people feel like, courage is like, you said courage, right? Oftentimes people feel like, because you have a little fear, because you haven't quite figured it out, or whatever the case may be, while you walking forward, they feel like they're not being courageous, or that's not the case, right? I think if you can move forward and do things in fear, and you don't got if fear is present, or anxiety is present, or doubt is present, and you still walk forward, that's courage. If those things are not present, that's not courage. That's a layup. That's easy. You understand what I'm saying? And I think that's also what keeps people complacent, right? Keep people stuck, because it's like, and I feel like the church is partly to blame for some of this, because the idea, how they say, and we can go deep, but sometimes they say God is not the author of confusion, right? I think we heard that so much out of context that sometimes we believe like, well, since I don't have all the pieces to this yet, since I don't see it fully clear yet, the vision clear yet, maybe God is saying don't go yet. You know what I mean? That's not the case. That's not true. You will not always have all the pieces. And if you wait for it, if you're my competitor, I'm gonna smoke you. If you're waiting for that, if you need all the pieces, different smoke. I'm different smoke. But I'm serious. If you're waiting for, I literally, when I hear people talk that type of language, I get excited, right? Because I know for a fact, right? Because it's my story, and a lot of people I now look up to in business and different industries. I know that they didn't wait for all the pieces. They didn't wait for the vision to be fully clear. They didn't wait like God said, do this specific thing. Then this. No, sometimes just this is all you see. Go do that. But the key is do it really, 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 really well. And by that, it's like, yeah, but what if I don't do it as well as Festus? Do it your well, right? Whatever you have, give all of that to it, and God will do the rest. I promise you, He will do the rest. You know what I mean? What that's going to look like, I don't know. But anyway, let's slow down. My bad. Yeah.
No, so this is the thing. I love it because, again, one of the things we do in the podcast is try to bring people who basically live what we teach.
Sure.
Being, knowing, doing model. And so the character, the values and principles.
Sure.
The fact that, you had a vision for your life. You know what I mean? Even though you didn't see the vision made manifest. And then the knowing is what relationships, that you need to build up to get to that next level. And then finally the doing, creating your own plan, your process, and then executing on that.
Mm.
You know, and a lot of times I think you're speaking the truth is that a lot of young people are just afraid. And they don't quite know what they're afraid of, you know, to take that next step. And so it's like, we need to see everything all clear. And that's just not going to happen, because the reality is that you don't know what you don't know.
Come on.
And you don't know until you get to the point
Come
that
on.
you say, hey, I'm
Come
at the
on.
end of my knowledge.
Man,
you know what I'm saying?
just want to hit on that point. You know how many times I rewrote my vision to our company? I started with the vision, with the culture idea, with the core values. I started with them, right? Because, you know, I studied people who said you got to start with them, right? You know how many times they've changed? Like, we've talked about this, but, you know, to a degree, if we're talking core values, they won't change a whole lot, right? Because the core values is core of who you are, right? But vision, it'll develop. It's gonna change. You don't gotta have it all together. Here's the key: you gotta be rowing in a singular direction, right? I mean, any force. I don't know you got some teachers in here, the physics, I don't know, but you know, if you are forcefully pushing in one direction consistently, it is going to happen. When? That's questionable, right? But it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. You just keep pushing in one direction. You know what I mean? And you know, I think David Goggins said the person who can do a bunch of thankless things consistently without seeing you know things come to fruition is a person who wins, right? If you can just keep doing stuff and you don't get the thank yous, the pat on the backs, you don't see it all, you don't you know get the outcome yet, but you keep on grinding in one direction, it'll come. Yeah.
And again, I think you said something just really, really powerful there about not seeing it all come together. And I think right now is one of the scariest times for students.
Sure.
Because, you know, you got AI pressure, you got college degree and student loan debt pressure, and then you got like this whole thing of like, well, what else is out there? And so we talk about, you know, the 6 different things a person can do after high school. You go to trade school, you could go to college, you could get a job, you can start a business, you could sit on your mom's couch, you know what I'm saying? Or you can kind of do this whole thing of kind of being caught in the middle, right? And so tell us, and I want you to kind of elaborate, because you talked about formal education, informal education. Man, I tried the formal routes, they didn't work for me. But you said a key thing, I love education. And so sometimes we think education is the school instead of seeing the two differently.
Yeah, now,
right?
Yeah.
And so talk about the education, the business education, the stuff that you took from the streets, you applied to business, that got you to a certain level.
Sure.
And then what is the other education that come on? You know,
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's a part of the streets, if you want it to be, right? A lot of times people see someone start they deal drugs, they build this big empire, and it's like, if you can do that, you can do it here. It's true, you can. But a lot of times, let me not go into that. It's just true that you can, if you want to, okay? You have to use it. You gotta hone a lot of that stuff in, right? So the things I took from the streets, and let me be clear, both my mom and my pops are entrepreneurs, right? My pops is more, self-employed, you know what I mean? There's a difference, right? My pops is self-employed. My mom is at heart an entrepreneur and has been an entrepreneur, opening up multiple companies. So I got it honest in that respect, right? I seen them do it, and as a kid, I would, also start all the lawn businesses and all that stuff. I just wanted to be very clear that, a lot of that stuff I did get from my parents. Now, when we talk about, what did you take from the streets? I sold drugs, right? And so, yeah, the idea of, getting out there, putting in the work, grinding, you know what I mean? And, using what you make to go buy more supply, right? So, that was, that was like obvious, right? And then even when I was in the streets, I was never the type that, I wasn't flashy at all. I wanted to look good, but it was basic. I didn't need the chains, the whips. That just wasn't me. As a matter of fact, early, before I ever even heard it, I'm super competitive, right? So anybody I knew, it could be a cousin. I don't care who you are. If I know you selling drugs and I'm selling drugs, I want to beat you. You know what I'm saying? Always competitive in that respect, right? And so I seen you buying a whole bunch of stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm about to get you. Like it's a wrap. Because I was okay with just, as a matter of, and my friends didn't like it about me, right? I was okay with just seeing my cash build up. I just love opening my box. I had cash everywhere, opening my box and just, yeah, cash, you know what I mean? Going to my drawer, look, cash, yeah. Like, I like that, right? So even in business, I didn't go, this is where a lot of us mess up at, right? We make some money in business and it's like, go spend it, No. We make some money in business, like, okay, let me go spend it. You know, a lot we want to look the part. We care more about that. And if you're my competitor, you know what I mean? I hope this puts some fire under somebody, but I'm going to smoke you.
I got you.
I promise you, I am. You know what I mean? Because if I come in your industry and you're doing that, I'm going to smoke you. Because if your goal is to just, you know, look the part, for me, I want money to build up. And that was really good, like you said, to get me to a point, right? I knew to go work really hard, go grind and hustle, same way I did in the street, make money, use that money, reinvest. I didn't know these terms, by the way. Reinvest in the company by going to go buy more equipment, trucks, or whatever, right? We started with no equipment. Within 6 months, I bought my first truck for $4,000. You know what I mean? I lost that first truck in 2 months. It was a piece of crap. You know what I mean? Lost that truck in no time. But I'm like, okay, get back to it. Go grind, you know, figure stuff out. So got more money, bought another truck. Next year, bought another truck. I watched my competitors, right? I wish I could name names. I watched them. They was all on social media, buying this, buying that, and I'm buying stuff I need, and we built in our company. So it was enough to get me there, right? However, you can't sit on money, okay? You got to use money to make money. It's an employee. You got to employ your money, right? Your money should be making you money. So yeah, and I felt like I was spending my money on the right stuff, but what was I missing? It's missing education, right? It's missing knowledge. I was missing, I didn't go, and I was hearing some of the people I was going against, and I'm like, how are they doing this? One thing that I really will credit formal education, especially on the collegiate level, I'll give them this credit. Not that I can't give them a whole bunch of more credit, but here we go. I've watched guys who've gotten education on collegiate level, their ability to be a chameleon in spaces, their social ability, you know what I mean? It's like unmatched, you know? And that just like, I would go into a space, I just knew the hood. Yeah. I didn't know how to talk. And that's big in business, networking and building and growing. So, I remember our mutual pastor at the time had told me, he's seen clearly your vocabulary is very short. He was like, you need to come up with 2 words for every 1 word. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that sound really cool. But I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. Where do I do this at? How do I figure this out? By the way, the key for your vocab, at least for me, the key was reading, simply reading, just read, And I seen that early, right? I started reading and I finished my first book. I cried again, by the way, when I finished my first book. I'm like, I finished my first chapter book. Like, you know what I'm saying? Bro, I was down, I was low, read my book, and my vocab started getting up, right? And I would make my money and I would realize there's a cap, like I'm still capped out. So I'm like, okay, what is out there? Like, what am I missing? And I start hearing about people in my industry that's putting on seminars, seminars, workshops. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. And then I'm like, okay, let me look into it. All right, to go here, they're selling tickets to this for $9.95. I'm like, $1,000. I have the cash, more than enough. But I'm like, for that, I'm not spending that. It made sense to spend it on something tangible that a truck or something like that, but I was limited, right? That made sense and then I was like, okay, cool, $1,000. I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, but it's in Phoenix. I gotta buy a ticket. I'm like, look at the ticket, $400 or $500. I'm like, this is adding up. So, long story short, I'm like, this is too much money. So I ended up talking to, I can't remember who it was at the time, unfortunately, but I ended up talking to somebody and it was like, I told him how much it was going to cost. I'm like, I can't spend this. I'm like, it's going to cost so much. He's like, how much is failure going to cost you? You know what I'm saying? He's like, how much does it cost you to mess up here, mess up there, and da-da-da? I'm like, you got a really good point. You know what I mean? He said, if somebody can save you millions of dollars worth of time and mess ups, is that worth it, Greg? I'm like, book my ticket. You know what I'm saying? I'm out of here. You know what I mean? So, and I promise you, bro, that was the key. I'm unstoppable now. Even though I got in that room and there was hundreds of thousands of other people there, and it was like, okay, well, I'm kind of behind. But look at my competition changed though. I was competing against these people that really wasn't on my level anyway. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm in this room, new level of competition. But it was good because it called me to higher heights, right? And so I got in that in a seminar. This was put on by Louis Massaro. Got to give him loads of credit. He's an OG in our industry, and they built a $20 million moving company and taught us how to do it, right? And that's when I learned about. It didn't stop there. Here's a key I want to give. Whenever you go to any event, networking is key, right? Never just go for what the event is giving. Always take more. Always take more. You understand what I'm saying? So this podcast may be about you guys are asking questions that the audience may care about, but listen to the nuance. Listen to the little things that I'm saying that may speak to you. You understand what I'm saying? So likewise, they'll be up there talking and they'll be like, da-da-da-da, I read this book. I'm like, oh, okay, book. Let me get that book. Okay, this guy said this, so-and-so said this in this book. Okay, let me get that book, right? So, and then it's like, man, I talked to this guy and he helped me with this, and that guy would be in the room. I'm like, go talk to that guy. You understand what I'm saying? So I took so much from that event, came back, started reading books that led me to the E-Myth Revisited. So I'm like, okay, systems, processes. I'm like, it makes sense. One of the hardest things.
Sorry, you know the words now.
First, there we go. I knew words. I didn't know these words. That's another thing. So now when I get into these spaces, into these rooms, I can talk a different language now. You understand? And so anyway, I don't want to go too far. So
yeah, I know this is so good. I wish we could just keep going, but we got a couple things I think I definitely want to address because we just got to, and then we want to take any questions that might be coming up. So here's the deal. Can you talk to us a little bit about numbers? You don't have to go in the like.
I want to.
I
want to.
But,
oh, not
you know,
yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. No.
You know what I'm saying? But talk to us about numbers. You started a moving company with no truck. So, how much was that initial investment?
Come on, I love it. Yeah. So yeah, I like talking about numbers. Seriously, I want to. I feel like we should talk about numbers more. I got to throw this in there. I feel like we should talk about numbers more often. And then when we hear about those numbers, we got to stop attaching it to like, oh, you made those numbers, I can go do this. If I had those numbers, I can buy this and that. Numbers are important, I think, for if you come from where I come from, because it tells you like what's possible. Sometimes it tell you asking about the $1 million mark. Sometimes it tell you that certain numbers ain't what you think. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of things. You know, it gives open doors and opportunity to get educated on numbers, like what to do with them. All right, here we go. So when I first started the company, I was working at Tennis Express. So I took maybe. I lived paycheck to paycheck, so I couldn't take much, but I was dedicated at the time to not take no loans out, right? It was some, talk that you would have at times, and we knew about Dave Ramsey, and I'm like, no loans, I'm not gonna take no loans. And again, I don't know Dave Ramsey's principles on this, but I just believed that he wouldn't want you to take loans, right? So I'm like, let me take a part of my check, which was like $500, right? Let me go to New Haven out here, shout out to New Haven, a local moving company store. Went to New Haven, I'm like, okay, here's one thing about me, I ask questions. A lot of questions. My parents, everybody around me hated that when I was young. If I call my daddy right now, I promise you, I don't care. You put me on the spot. I'll call my pops right now. Call my mama. Look, what's one thing that set me apart when I was growing up? Boy, you asked too many dang questions. They hated it about me, but it was a thing that freed me. You know what I mean? I wasn't afraid to be in front of the class and ask questions. I wasn't afraid to shut everything down and ask a question. I didn't care. I had no shame. Right? And it was a thing that blessed me. So ask questions. All right. So yeah, I went into the store, New Haven, and I'm like, hey, what do I need to get? I want to start a moving company. Where do I start at? Right? You need this, you need that. Da-da-da. By the time I left out that store, I can get only half of what he said before all my $500 was gone. So I'm like, that's enough. I bought a dolly. I bought a four-wheeler. I bought one bundle. I'm lying. I didn't buy a bundle of blankets. Couldn't afford it. I bought 6 blankets, right? And a pack. I didn't buy a pack. I think I bought like 3 rolls of tape, right? And I'm like, all right, this is what I got. Left that, and I think I probably even took a picture. Like, you know what I mean? Like I got, I started my moving company. My whole family was with me, my kids, I asked the guy, I said, what advice do you have for me for starting? I just got to throw this in there, it's a funny story. I said, what advice do you have for me for starting my moving company? He said, I got some advice. Are you married? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, you ain't gonna be. I'm like, whoo, whoa, you feel me? Needless to say, it was still married happily and thriving, right? And the key to that is do everything with your family. Business, faith, business, everything with your family. You know what I mean? As much as you can. All right. So we started the company with that amount of money, right?
What are you generating
Okay.
today?
Today we're gonna do this year about 2.1 million. About 2.1 million. That first year we did 50K though. That very first year, and it was only half a year. And I'm like, oh, for sure. Next year I'm gonna do 100K. It don't work like that. You know what I'm saying? Some seasons got ebbs and flows. So I'm like, oh, we got a slow season. So yeah. But again, numbers we gotta watch. It's not about how much money you make, it's about what you keep, right? Come on.
So how many employees do you have?
About 20, maybe about somewhere around 20, 21. Yeah, 20, somewhere in there, yeah.
So can you tell us what are some of the gems just maybe 3 gems.
Sure, I got you.
What are 3 gems that you teach your employees, like as if they're your family?
Yeah.
Say, hey, we got to do this in order to get to the next level.
Okay, you said as if they're family. Speaking to them personally, or talking about us as a company?
Either way, whatever you feel comfortable.
Yeah, so I'm really big on building my team, right? My passion is coaching, really. So I try to coach my guys, right? So I give them the same things, right? I tell them same things that help me. Tell them read, right? Reading is really big, and a lot of these guys got the same struggles I had in school. So read, get educated, or gain knowledge. Right? I think is a difference, right? Network, okay, and don't be afraid to be uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, chase discomfort. And that sounds so good and cliche, but it's difficult. But once you I'm not fully comfortable with it. How do you really get comfortable with discomfort, right? But when you know that that's a real key, if you know that key gonna open that door, right? Aren't you gonna go just, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm did this podcast with discomfort, right? I didn't want to make it show. But I had to coach myself on my way up here. Yeah, Greg, don't use call to this. Da, 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 da. If Kessis is asking you, you good, da, da, da. Right? I'm uncomfortable. You know what I mean? But I needed to do it, right? So anyway, I give them that. As a company, one thing I'm super huge on as a company, okay? I believe that we as a company can only get as far as the individuals there is willing to go, right? And not just willing to go, as far as they're able to go. And when I say that, I believe that self-development is really, really important, right? So reading, working out, you know what I mean? Whatever your thing is. So for me, reading, working out, cold plunges, journaling, all these things are really, really, really important. Because if I, as a leader, we don't have time for this, but I almost had to close my doors at a certain point in business. And I realized that it was my fault because I'm a leader. Even though I could have pointed the fingers at I had to take responsibility for where this company was because I'm a leader, right? And I said, you know what? The reason why I couldn't grow and do more is because I ran into my cap. You understand? And so I'm like, I gotta remove the cap. And to remove the cap, I had to get uncomfortable and I had to do things I didn't like. So I start eating better. I start working out. I start networking. I start getting in front of people and speaking. I did whatever because that's what leaders do, right? I believe that somebody once said that your dream for your company got to be so big that your employees' dreams could fit inside of it. You understand? And so I'm like, okay, I got to start dreaming bigger, right? That got scary. But that just meant that I needed to develop more. So everybody, at least my key people, my people in my office, and even some of my VAs, I tell them, when I interview people, do you work out? What's your fitness life like? That's really important to me. What's your fitness like? If they I work out, but work is so much. What do we need to do for work then? With work to help you work out? That's important to me. I don't want you coming giving us halfway you. I want 100%. I want the best you can be. And you can't be that eating bad, not working out, not reading. You can't. You're getting up sluggish. Your brain is cloudy. All these different things. And I know because I'm a 2.0 version in business from where I was when I first started. It's because of that. You know what I mean? I'm more confident. I speak when I walk in a room, not bragging or boasting, but heads turn a little bit, you know what I mean? And maybe they turn a bit loud before, early in business. That's because I was 300 something pounds, you know what I'm saying? And so anyway, yeah.
Take the hoodie off, show the gun. So look, man, I wish we could continue because this is so deep and it's so rich in terms of what you've shared so far. And so for students who watch this in the future, for educators who listen to this, I hope you've gained some gems that you can share with your students. Obviously, college isn't for everybody, but education is.
100%.
And so sometimes we take the two and we just kind of jam them together. And so I love to see just a living legend. I want to give you your flowers, man. Again, I appreciate you like you can't believe, just again to be able to watch your journey, to see what you've done with the boys, with the family. It's amazing, man.
Appreciate it, bro.
It really is. It really is. Especially knowing where we came from. So should we take questions from the audience first?
Yes,
or
yes.
just got
Questions.
okay. Does anybody have any questions about anything that he brought up, that we brought up?
If you could talk about high schoolers today, what's something that you want to emphasize to them if they go through something similar to you or struggling with motivation, education, just that drive and hunger to be better?
Yeah, I would say that inner dialogue is more important than anything else around you. That inner dialogue. Like I said, you get different people in your life saying different things. You know what I mean? You see different things, all that stuff. But it's what you're saying to yourself on a regular basis. One thing that I'm so proud of, and I can't even take credit for it, it's just the Lord. But one thing I'm so proud of is I didn't know, but in a lot of ways, I didn't let a lot of that stuff penetrate. There's other people who may hear this, who may think like, well, I don't know, lucky you. Like there's other people who came from where you came from who, went through what you went through, and it did penetrate. You understand? And so they did make it out. Like I said, one of my closest friends, he's not here with us today. And so, and if I'm honest, he wasn't, I don't know if maybe he would have changed at some point, but he wasn't ready at that time. And so he was speaking something different in his mind. He wanted to be the biggest gangster, the biggest drug dealer. That's what he wanted. I wanted something better. I wanted something different. So to answer your question, that inner dialogue, you know what I mean? And what if I don't have the right things to say? What if I don't know what to say? Reading is really important, right? Don't get caught up in your context. Your context is not even half the story. That's not even half the picture. It's a fraction of the picture. You understand what I'm saying? Like if we talk about the grand scheme of things, your context, oh my gosh. I always used to say, I wish my friends could see some of the things I've seen and hear some of the things I've heard. And they'll see that, bro, what we were talking about in the projects, and it's a certain apartment complex in my hood. If you knew that conversation is nothing, that is minuscule compared to what these dudes are talking about. You understand what I'm saying? And if you gotta step out. So, change your context, read some books, look at some shows. I would say the Disney Channel, but it's different nowadays. Go ahead. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. And inner dialogue. Inner dialogue. Yeah.
Okay. Can we take two more questions? Two more questions.
You said something about the church, which was really good because you spoke on more of the Abraham type of faith, the one where Abraham just say, where God tells you, hey, go away. That's it. Yeah. So yeah, that was something because most people waiting for the whole plan, but God never shows the whole plan. That's the
Come on.
First step is trusting, and if you can't trust that first step,
come on.
So,
yeah. That's all. Yeah, that's real. Praise God for that. I didn't connect that, but yeah.
I love it. Any other questions before we close now? You're gonna ask this question off camera.
Okay.
So you're gonna ask like 7 of them?
Go ahead.
Oh, well, just thank you again, Greg. You said you were nervous. Nothing about anything you did was nervous.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We told you this is a conversation amongst friends.
Yeah.
So just thank you so much for your story, your testimony, really, and just being able to share that with us. Really, really appreciate it.
No doubt.
For the students, please make sure we've just been so blessed ever since we started these in-persons. The quality of the guests that we've been able to pull and bring in, and these stories that we've been able to share with y'all. I hope y'all really heed what he said. There were some dimes that were dropped today. So please listen, rewatch, watch again, share with your friends. For Festus Samoya, I'm Ole Sharanki. Thank you so much for joining us on this latest episode of Edusteps, powered by Lighting Your Success.
Shout out to Sid, shout out to Debo, the whole entire team, the family here. We appreciate you guys. So listen, there are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no legitimate excuse for not getting an education. And we will see you on the next episode.
Peace. Good stuff, man.
Oh, you still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS podcast.